I am doing a impromptu live. I really just wanted to practice this YouTube live thing because I plan to do them more often. So I figured today I would just go ahead and paint for as long as I can till about 4 o'clock my time. I am working on this custom commission for somebody right now, so I thought it would be fun to bring you guys along and just kind of watch behind the scenes as I do this custom portrait, which will take me at least 3 hours, somewhere between 3 to 5 hours. It's an 11 by 14 size pet portrait that I'm working on right now, and it's a gift. So I'm very excited. Somebody had custom commissioned this one. I would normally give you guys a good heads up when I do lives. So this is just a fun little surprise. Just grabbing some of my paints. Because I am a little loud right now, I'm just gonna grab my favorite, Payne's Gray. I use the Payne's Gray instead of black, and there's actually gonna be quite a bit of blue hues in this dog as it is. This is looks to be kind of a Border Collie Aussie marking mix. Here we are right here. So this is my reference photo I have to the side. I also have another video online on my YouTube channel that shows how exactly I go about the sketching process, because I know that can be tricky in having a sketch that is accurate. It really does make a big difference for the outcome of the portrait. So I will, after I post this, I can try and link that down in the description for you guys. You won't be able to see my paints. I'm using a very messy palette over here, like really messy. Need to wash this. But I use a lot of Van Dyke browns, burnt sienna colors, Payne's Gray. Every once in a while, I'll use some type of a darker gray color, but I typically stay within the Payne's Gray mixed with brown to create my black hues. Definitely going to have some reds and pinks because there's some peachy colors in the nose and ear. All right, but I don't want to waste time chatting because I don't have a lot of time to paint today. So I am going to just dive on in, and I hope you guys just enjoy getting to see the behind the scenes, and I'll try and talk through this painting as much as I can. Like I mentioned, I won't get through the whole thing at all during this 40 or so minutes of this live. Maybe I can do a part 2 then. Alrighty. Just going to grab some of my favorite brushes here. The 11 by 14 size is pretty big, so I'll just grab a little bit of a bigger brush. I'm gonna mix up some colors to make the inner part of the ear and just lay those base colors in right now. And that is a peachy color, so reds, browns. I have a much better series for color mixing for dogs and whatnot on my channel too. So this part can just kind of relax and block in some of those areas. So right now I'm just doing the first base layers of the inner part of the ear. Eventually we'll get layered with a lot of hair. I just love brindly tricolor dogs like this. The paintings turn out really, really pretty when they have a lot of different color and dimension. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. So I'm just trying to keep that as light as I can right now. The really light hairs that overlap the ear on the inside, I'll be using a bleed proof white for that. so that we'll be able to stand on top of the actual ears. Just drop a little darker texture in here. Add a little dimension. This is the wet on wet technique that watercolor artists love to use. It just helps to really nicely blend those base layers. You can kind of see some of that same color over on this side of the ear, so I'll just add that in there. So I do plan to do more YouTube lives, paint with me tutorials, and I'll also have like printable outlines for you guys on more structured ones that we'll walk through from start to finish. I'm also going to be hosting a 12 Days of Watercolor Christmas challenge, and I'd like to do that over here on YouTube, and it'll be a live on YouTube with the ability to do the replay. So I'll include a link on how to join that 12 Days of Watercolor Christmas challenge, because I'll also have printable outlines that you'll need to get from your email. So I'll go ahead and put that down below. Alrighty, so now I'm just moving to a smaller pointed round brush. That was kind of a bigger mop brush that I was using to lay those base layers in, and I'm now going to start focusing on the outer edges of the dog's ear, which is mixing the Payne's Gray and the Van Dyke Brown. That kind of creates that black, grayish black. I just don't like to use pure black as much as possible, because I just think that makes it seem a little too flat and predictable, I guess you could say. I just love the more dynamic color that you can create when you do mixes. So that is what I'm doing right now. Being careful not to hit some of those really wet layers. But again, this is still just a real nice base layer. You don't have to be super detailed in these base layers, but I do like to start giving the idea of hairs and the direction of those hairs, even in the base layer. And then, of course, the outer edge of the ear is not one flat edge. So making sure that there's a jagged hair-like frayed edge to the ear. I'm hoping that this is staying focused enough. But that is why we practice. All right, so there's some nice little early base layers for the ear here. I just love the way that it's almost like this beautiful tie-dye for the inner ear. Pull this back up here, just using a little piece of tape to keep it positioned to where I kind of want it to sit. I always start with the ears of a pet. It just is the one of the best areas to get warmed up and get a good feel for color mixing, and there's just a lot less pressure to get it 100% correct on the ear area. And then of course, naturally, you don't want to start at the bottom because your hand needs to rest. So, ears it is. I'm not afraid to go too dark on some of these base layers either, just because they are so dark in the photo that I'll just continue to build them up. You can't rush watercolor, especially when it comes to layering. The best way to get the darker colors is to wait over time. As things dry, you can go back and add layers. And that's going to be the best way to get darker areas. So just have to be patient for things to dry. And sometimes that's very hard for me. So I'll just start to add in the blocks of color and continue to move around. This is a pretty decent reference photo, which makes a world of difference when you go to make portrait paintings. Having a poorly lit or unfocused reference photo just will not do you any favors. So unfortunately, you have to turn some work down if the reference photo is just not clear enough or the lighting is not good enough. It's just not worth trying to force it if you can't see the details well enough, because I have done that and it is extremely difficult, and the painting just doesn't, no matter how much practice you have, it just doesn't come out as good as it could. Now, sometimes pets have passed away, so that's the case, and they just don't have a better reference photo. It's good to just be honest with your customer. Say, I'm willing to give this a try. But if it really is just too hard, then it's just not worth it. So as you can see, I'm just painting in those blocks of patches. Also showing frayed edges of the hairs. The magic really comes once you get those base layers in and you're getting really close to finally adding in the white, bleed-proof white details at the very end. In my opinion, anyways. I hope this is focusing good enough. I've been trying to see if I can adjust the focus. If anybody ever pops in here or is here, let me know if this is out of focus for you, because I'm just practicing today to get the technology right for when I go to do more lives. you don't want to go too dark right out of the get-go. Layering is very helpful to not do too heavy in some areas because then it could muddy up your painting. So you kind of just do this happy dance of working around and getting those layers in, taking a step back and seeing how they look. I think I'll switch to adding in some of those lighter brown hairs that kind of creep up the ear now that that area is dry. So I'm just going to mix some of my Van Dyke brown with the yellow ochre to get a nice light golden-y color. Being careful not to bump anything here. But there's some very nice long hairs in here. Really helps to have a nice pointed round brush with a nice fine tip to it. I'd even go through and add a little bit of the grayish colors in there too to help add some dimension. And then at the end, the bleed proof white will go over top of that to really define those hairs. Kind of do the same thing for over here. I've been doing pet portraits for, I would say at least 5, 6 years now, which is crazy to think about. But it's taken a lot of all those years and a lot of dogs and cats to really get a good feel for my process and what I like to start with, and just even having a better flow of painting. So if you're kind of in the beginning of pet portraits, just know that it takes time. And I cringe when I look at some of my early work, but I also love it too at the same time. Like I can laugh and love it at the same time because it is where, of course, I started. And the amount of progress that I see in my style of painting is pretty amazing. So I hope that gives you a little bit of hope to not give up if you're getting frustrated. I still get frustrated. I shouldn't say that I am super confident in every painting I do. Totally not the case. There's been a few, and I will say a lot of it, again, goes back to the reference photo. But there's a lot of paintings that I'm like, oh no, I don't know if it's going well, but then you got to push through, and you usually do see some great outcomes, but there's a weird middle of every painting that you want to give up. Totally normal. So just trying to create a lot of dynamic colors in there. think I'll go back through that ear and add a little more dimension to the outer edge here. This is where I like to start to see some progress. So I'll just take a little bit more of that darker color. And start to run some of those hairs right on top. I also have a free pet portrait masterclass. I'll be teaching another one too this December. So a lot of opportunities for you to learn and get started with watercolor pet portraits if you're interested in that. I'll try and also leave that link down below. So you can already start to see the dynamic colors in that ear coming to life. If you have a favorite dog breed that you love to paint, I'd love to know what that is, or even what you think is kind of the most difficult breed to paint. Drop that in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your favorite dog or most difficult dog breed is. I'd say for me, the most difficult would be a all black dog. More so than an all white dog, which I think a lot of people feel is one of their most difficult breeds is an all white dog, but the all black dogs, they just have, I mean, they're really dark. So there's this tricky balance of not going too dark in a painting and keeping a lot of light areas. And I find that more difficult than in a white dog and making it dark enough. When I paint, I normally listen to podcasts. It'd be nice to be listening to music or something right now, but with lives and the YouTube music licensing, I wouldn't be able to post this video. So I hope you also get to be enjoying some music in the background if you're painting and just tuning in or watching this at a later time. Again, we'll have more structured paint with me videos. But for now, totally just practicing this technology. So I'm sorry if things aren't looking super crisp, because that's something I need to definitely figure out. So when I did this sketch, I did mark some of the important patches in the dog. So some of these, I should say, markings. So like these big distinct dark spots with the light patch there helps me just be able to visualize the proportions and where things are. But I still kept it pretty light and plain as far as the sketch. I'm just gonna start to get a bigger brush here for these base layers. I'll leave a little bit of white in between some of these strokes, but I'm okay if I don't. Again, I will be adding the white in later. So I just need to get a good texture in the background and base. And even though there are some white patches, those are definitely going to have that light grayish blue hue to them. That's just kind of with white dogs, you always have color in the white areas, just a lot more subtle. And also feel free to drop down any questions you have in the comments on pet portraits in general. I'm happy to answer anything like that. This is a big offering in my business that I run, so I've been doing it for a while now, and I've seen quite a few, or I've had quite a few paintings come across my desk over the last 5 to 6 years. So hopefully I can help answer any questions that you have. I'm going to start to add a little bit of red into this hair mixture. You can kind of see that it needs to be a little warmer. Just following this dark patch of hair kind of down where it ends. Since I have that color on my brush, I might as well just kind of follow it down. While that area is still wet, I might even drop in some darker colors. This, where it overlaps, there's kind of this light brown that overlaps it, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop that in there to show some dimension. So I know everybody develops their own style when it comes to painting in general, especially painting pet portraits. So I would describe my style as being more on the realistic style for capturing pets. But some are really amazing at using more of a impressionistic or just a lighter style where it's not quite as detailed. And those turn out really special too. So through the years of practice and over time, you start to find your style. I would say mine's getting more and more detailed as the years go on. Um, I've seen some do some amazing colors that have nothing to do with pet colors at all, like bright pinks, blues, purples that are very detailed paintings, but then they're just in these most amazing, vibrant colors. And I could see how somebody who is very vibrant and loves that style would choose that artist to do their pet portraits. So, just going to show that uh, the customer comes to you because they like your style, and everybody has their own unique style. So, just really fun being an artist and being able to have your own voice. So when I go back through and add details into some of these patches, I don't do it over the entire patch. I just do it in some areas to show dimension within even that one patch. So I'll just go a little bit lighter for the base and then let that dry and go back through and add those darker details like I just did here. The other big thing for portraits and what really elevated my painting ability and style was not only just the practice, that's a big part of it, but was the supplies and specifically the watercolor paper that I was using. I was using student grade paper in some of those early portraits, and you just will never get the quality of color mixing and brush strokes within the student grade paper. What you really need is the 100% cotton paper, which is what I'm painting on, is Arches Watercolor 140-pound cold pressed paper. And it really just makes a huge difference. So if you're getting pretty serious about wanting to get better at pet portraits, go ahead and get yourself. Seems like expensive to buy, but it really will make a huge difference. So why struggle and not see as good a progress as you could if you had the top quality stuff? I wouldn't say paints matter as much, in my opinion, but truly the paper is the number one priority. And then after that, the brushes. I mean, it's pretty easy to get some nice quality brushes for not very expensive. Like this one that I'm using came in a pack, and I think I paid $13 for it. And so they're not like these top-notch professional brushes, but I have really enjoyed using them. There's just a bunch of different um, brushes out there. It can be really overwhelming, so you just have to play and see what you like best. But for sure, the paper would be my biggest recommendation. So I'm trying to kind of respect the fact that this area is going to be a little bit lighter and not overdo it. So it's very important to paint in the direction of the hair, so these hairs coming out from the eye are going to start to spiral out and around. That's definitely part of creating the realism and the dimension of a pet, is painting in the direction of the hair and sculpting the face. Just going to add a super light wash in the area of where this white patch is. Just running a little water over that area. I'm going to go ahead and add that little light patch right above the eye. I'd hate to paint over that. You can't really go backwards with watercolor if you paint a black, dark color in an area that's supposed to be kept light or a light brown. Sometimes you want to work a little faster with watercolor so you don't leave any harsh edges when it dries. So like that little swipe, I don't want to leave that there too long because I don't want to see that. working with top quality paper, 140 pounds, especially cold press. You have a little bit more time before it dries, which is one of the beauties of it. Having a little color issues in my palette here. I'm gonna have to put a little more color on. It's so fun to be able to paint a larger size like this. So the 11 by 14 size is really, really fun. I don't normally get this size as often, but it is such a pretty size for custom pet portraits. Usually I see a lot more of the 8 by 10s, which is a nice size. I also started recently, this past year, offering 5 by 7 sizes. And that has been a nice option to add for people, just both budget-wise and whatnot. So I'm glad I started offering that one. The glare of the light makes it a little bit tricky to see. I'm not sure there's anything more relaxing than spending your afternoon or morning getting to paint a dog. It's pretty wonderful. This is kind of the stage where I'm like getting a little bit nervous because it just doesn't look very good. Those are those beginning stages. You just gotta keep pushing through. I always leave the eyes for pretty much the end of a painting. Just until, I don't know why, I guess it was just a comfort level for me. Um, but I know some people who enjoy doing them in the beginning because they figure if I'm going to mess up the eyes, um, then at least I didn't spend all the time doing the painting, which does make a lot of logical sense. For me, I like being warmed up and seeing the entire painting, and with my comfort level at that point, I am very confident that the eyes will go just fine. It's just such an important part of the painting, so I like to leave it for the end. Just kind of hop back up, being really careful not to bump anything. Just wanted to get those light layers or those lighter brown patches in so I didn't overpaint in some areas. Now there's also kind of a nice darker patch there too. I shouldn't say dark, it's kind of a medium color patch, so I just want to get some of that in there. When I do work on paintings, I like to try and work for about an hour at a time. So paint for an hour, stand back. Every once in a while I'll go about 2 hours. I used to push myself and try and get like 3 hours in, and it was just way too hard. My eyes would be so not focusing at the end. So now I have no problem pausing in the middle of a painting like I couldn't do in the beginning. I feel a lot more comfortable being able to come back later. This definitely has a long ways to go. The 11 by 14 size takes a very long time. But yeah, so I think I just really want to stop there for now. I wanted to go for about 45 to an hour, and I am here just to practice. Um, I'm not sure if I'll do a part two, but this is just to show these base layers of this custom pet portrait that I'm working on. It looks very messy. I'm in the stage of being very like that nervous, like, oh, how is this going to turn out phase. But in time, it'll all come together. It just takes a lot of patience. So thanks so much. If you stop by today, don't be afraid to drop any questions below or comments. And I'll try and include some of those important links I chatted about today in the description below. And I will see you guys in the next Paint With Me Live video.